Follow Footsteps EP, the idea was spawned at the end of 2023. I'd been doing a bunch of shows with Lost Map Presents Weird Wave, our collective project. As part of that show, I did a bunch of like solo performances as like a opening warm-up thing. A few Pictish Trail solo sets, and Susan Bear, my good friend who's also a member of Lost Map Presents Weird Wave, was in attendance, and after one of the shows said to me, you know, you really need to record versions of these acoustic songs, because I was performing songs from Island Family and from across the back catalogue, just me and the guitar, and Suze was like, oh, you know, your voice is really nice. Thanks, Suze. She's always very complimentary about my voice, and I'm always up for compliments about my voice. Just, that's for your reference. Feel free to compliment me on my voice at any time. Always makes me feel good. And yeah, said some really nice things, and it just made me think, okay, I'd been going through a bit of a mad time and needed a bit of a project to kind of distract me. So Suze had said, look, I want to produce an EP of acoustic versions of your songs and do them in a really precise and beautiful way. I think for Suze, this was a project that she wanted to do to just hone a few different production skills, kind of do something a little bit different for herself, and was treating Pictish Trail as a bit of a guinea pig for that, and I was well up for being a guinea pig. So at the beginning of 2024, we booked some time in La Chunky Studio, La Chunky, which is in Glasgow, and is a great wee spot. We'd recorded some vocal overdubs there, in fact, for the Weird Wave record. So I'd been familiar with the place. The people who own it are very nice. And yeah, I needed something to kind of kick off my year. So the first week of January, I travelled down from Egg, and we spent 3 days recording guitar, my vocal, and Suze did some bass and some keys. I think there was a Fender Rhodes there, and there was a nice piano. We put down the basis for the 3 tracks that we wanted to work on to begin with, which was Island Family, Nuclear Sunflower Swamp, and Melody Something. I think we knew we wanted some extra arrangements and stuff on top of that, but we wanted to see how that would all come together. Suze very much had like an idea of like Mitski in mind. She was really into this Mitski record and played me some of it, and it was really a very sumptuous recording, very warm sounding and beautiful, and wasn't really something that I'd listened to much before. And when we were in the studio, when we were in La Chunky, I played to Suze some tracks from Bonnie Prince Billy's Master and Everyone, because that's kind of what I had in mind. And although they're different, you know, his recordings are quite different to the more recent Mitski recordings, there was an intimacy there that both shared, and I think Suze was very much into that. And so yeah, we recorded all that. Suze mixed it together and got my vocal sounding really nice. And at that point we decided, okay, so what else should be on these recordings? And immediately I felt that we should get my friends Sime Wu on cello and Gillian Fleetwood on harp. Gillian I've played with before. Gillian's been in the Pictish Trail band for a wee bit with her partner Cami. Gillian played harp and keys in the band for a wee bit when Suze couldn't do some shows before. And so I knew her, and she's a great laugh, an amazing singer too. And I just kind of knew that her harp playing is so expressive, and she also is not afraid to use a bit of effect and stuff and kind of create nice swells of sound. So immediately I thought, oh, that would be a nice thing to have on top of these recordings. And Sime Wu is someone who was a member of the Earlies, who recorded my first album, Secret Sounds Volume 1. And the cello is such a beautiful instrument, has such a depth of emotion to it. It's quite a mournful sounding instrument, and these were quite serious ballads. So yeah, immediately I knew that it would be great to get Sime on board for this, because she's such an expressive player. Her own music is really incredible. It's like a sort of improvised performance art, almost expressive style of music that she makes herself, where she's using loads of different contact mics and percussion and weaving elements of her cello playing in throughout it. I'd bought a bunch of her music online, and yeah, I'd kept in touch, and just immediately she came to mind for this session, and she was up for it. And what was cool about it is that both Sime and Gillian have their own recording setup, so they were able to take the music that me and Suze had recorded and just add their own parts to it from home. And I told them just to feel free to be as expressive and as experimental as you like, and we'll try and mix it all together. And they came back with all these amazing parts that were so good that I ended up taking out a lot of my guitar. So yeah, really chuffed to have them involved. It was such a dream team, Suze, Gillian and Sime all together on this record. I'm really, really chuffed that they were all involved.
Head to the sky, a million tiny eyes staring down. We gather tight, we gather round, and set hellfire to the ground. It goes off and changes.
The songs on Follow Footsteps all appear on my previous album, Island Family, and funnily enough, when I was recording that album back in 2021 with Rob Jones, the producer, on the final day of recording with him, we had like half a day free. We'd managed to get everything done in time before I needed to leave his studio. And so we used that afternoon to create acoustic versions. And I think we actually recorded acoustic versions of these 3 songs, some of which were released through Postmap Club over the following year, but they were done like one take and with not much thought. I barely knew the songs even at that point because I'd just written them and recorded them. So like trying to do a performance of them with Rob felt like in the studio was very rushed. And so yeah, I think in the back of my mind I always wanted to revisit the songs and do acoustic version properly. So it was nice that when Suze asked. But lyrically, that album had been about trying to connect with nature. It was written during lockdown at a time when we were all being told, oh, you should go outside, go for a walk. I mean, the guidelines didn't really apply on Egg, but I think everyone felt a need to kind of reconnect with the outdoors because apparently you can't catch COVID outdoors. Was that what it was? I can't even remember. Anyway, I suddenly realised being on the island for that stretch of time that I was able to see the changes that were happening seasonally on the island in real time. I've spoken about this before, but often I'd be on the island for a month or so at a time and then I'd be going off for touring and I'd come back a month later and the whole island would look different. The season would have changed how green the island would look or how not green the island would look, and there'd be changes also in my children that would happen that I would notice when I'd come back. And so yeah, lockdown gave me the chance to kind of be there and live those changes, and I wanted to write an album about that and also just about feeling a sense of connection with the island, a sense of belonging. It was funny when revisiting these songs lyrically, sometimes when you're performing stuff acoustically, you know, after you've written it, even when you're on stage and you're performing them night after night, I don't know if the meaning of the songs change, but like the personal connection with the song kind of evolves. And for me, like there was a time when I could barely perform the song Island Family without crying. That song references a lot of people who have died on Egg and the sense of community and how strong that community is, and how when someone passes away on the island, how it affects everyone as if it was a family member. And just the thought of that would make me cry quite a lot whenever performing the song. It's quite tricky to do. And over the years I've hardened. Thankfully the album version is such a full-on industrial, energetic version that it's less intimate, say, than it was at the time of writing it initially. I think lyrically I was able to feel a sense of detachment from when I first wrote them. And I was able just to sing the songs, trying to convey the emotion in the performance of singing them, as opposed to having to tell a story with the lyrics in the same way. Does that make sense? It sort of makes sense in my head, but when I'm saying it out loud, it seems quite confusing. I tell you what's interesting though. I recently did a full band gig with Gitto, Joe and Ian, and we decided to do a full band version of Nuclear Sunflower Song because we'd never really done a full band proper version of it. And I realised then when we were doing it that the lyrics that I had used for the Follow Footsteps EP were slightly different for that song than the album version. And I don't remember making a conscious decision to change that at any point. And so in a weird way, the song is sort of subconsciously transformed lyrically over, just probably due to laziness. I should have checked. I should have looked at my lyrics. So like, what were the lyrics for this song again? I think when I went in to record the EP with Suze, I kind of had performed these songs so much that I felt so confident in as to what they were and what I wanted to express with them that I didn't actually didn't bother to go and check what the actual lyrics I sang were. I just wanted to do it all from memory. Is that lazy? Or is that actually just expressing how I felt in the moment? I don't know. But I'd like to be able to pontificate on it further and elucidate some sort of magical meaning that would have resonance for a wider audience. But even just saying that last sentence, I've confused myself. So fuck knows if the songs still carry the same meaning than they did when I first wrote them. I feel very protective of them though. And I'm very proud of those songs because the album versions are so bombastic and electronic and industrial and noisy and distorted. I felt like a lot of the lyrics would have got lost anyway with the production, and that was the conscious decision at the time. Yeah, I'm quite proud to be able to bring out the actual songs in them in these acoustic performances. My hope is actually that people might go back to the original versions and be like, oh yeah, there's a song in there and enjoy the original versions too.
Returning to the loop, leave what's to come behind. I can see your silver spark from here to sing in signs. Oh, oh, oh. Keep into your well-worn path, set it in the soil.
In terms of how I see the Follow Footsteps EP in the context of my back catalogue, looking at it now, I feel like it was quite a necessary step for me to take. 2023 was meant to be a year where I was taking a bit of a break from writing Pictish Trail stuff because I'd toured Island Family quite full on in the year of its release and afterwards. And I thought, right, okay, I want to kind of buy myself a bit of time before I start writing Pictish Trail songs proper. And the Weird Wave project was a way of being able to collaborate and put energy into that. But it wasn't enough. I wasn't ready to start writing brand new Pictish Trail songs at that time. I was just feeling quite stressed out with a lot of stuff. So this Follow Footsteps EP project, when it came along, was a bit of a saviour in that respect. It allowed me a bit more time to kind of think about brand new songs, sort of stopgap, but with songs that are really meaningful to me. The funny thing about it is that it's come after this Island Family record, which for me is the best album I've made, but the Future Echoes, Thumbworld and Island Family I kind of see as a trilogy. They're albums that I wrote not necessarily in quick succession, but they all came out on Fire Records eventually, and they were all albums that I worked on with Rob Jones, and that definitely feels like a sort of big segment of my life and quite a drastic change from the Secret Sounds albums that came before them. This Follow Footsteps EP felt like just a nice way of tying those three albums up in a way. It kind of feels like a nice little fitting addendum to that run, and hopefully gives another perspective on where my songwriting has gone and how it's evolved over that time, and just shows you the songs through another filter. You know, throughout my entire career, I've been called a folk artist, and as someone who started very much as part of a folky collective and has played acoustic guitar throughout my entire career, I can understand it, but like, I guess the music I've made, I've never really felt that it has truly embodied that that genre. I sometimes get lumped in with a lot of very plaintive and earnest singer-songwriters whose music I think is brilliant, but I feel like is quite different from my own, and their approach is quite different from my own. But with this EP, I thought, do you know what? Maybe I should just try and do something acoustic and scratch that itch and do something that is very rich and beautiful sounding. And I'm so glad I did. I was thinking about making it a longer album at one point and like taking songs from the other two albums. And maybe that would have been a cool project to do. But I also didn't want it to be too much of a distraction. It was perfect being able to record with Suze for 3 days and then see the tracks come together with the additions that C-May and Gillian made, and then spend a couple of days mixing with Rob. I think if I'd spent more time on it, then there definitely wouldn't be a new Pictish Trail album in the works. And I've started a new Pictish Trail album. I'm working with a new producer on it, and we've worked on 5 songs so far. It's coming along very slowly but steadily, and it feels like another change for me. It feels like a lot more of an open, more relaxed sounding record than the sort of previous pop albums. And so it feels like this Follow Footsteps thing has been a really worthwhile project to bridge that gap, and has definitely informed how I want to proceed. I'm excited for you to hear the new songs. I mean, God knows when you will, but you will.
The records on, I hear it, replay and turn back. I plant the seeds tonight, watch flowers rising into the black. You dream of soil and soul, it speaks to me in signs on the wall. It wasn't in writing, I perished contemplating the thought.
Island Family is the first track on the EP. I do this story about it when I perform it live, where I talk about Bonfire Night and it being my favourite night on the Isle of Egg of the year. And there's a story that involves a massive fire and the burning of a lot of rabbits. But really it's a song that I started writing at the beginning of 2021, and it was just after someone who had lived on the island, who'd moved away, they died. And it was quite a young guy who took his life, and the effect that that had on the island, just in terms of people finding out about it and talking about it, and the shock. The beginning of the year is always like quite a solemn time anyway, and people don't go out as much, and you don't see many people after Hogmanay, you know. For a month, everyone's still recovering with their horrific hangovers. And so I remember it being like quite a tricky time and an emotional time for everyone on the island. And it made me think about the other deaths that I'd heard of on the island. A lot of you might be familiar with the story of the Massacre Cave and the island's population being smoked to death in this cave during clan warfare in the 1500s. I mean, I should know the dates, shouldn't I? But history's mystery. Part of that story is in the song, but also there was someone who lived on the island before I was there who died in a car crash on the island, and there is a bench, which I sing about in the song, that's halfway up the walk to the top of the skewer, and the bench is next to these two lochs, and under the bench is a bottle of whiskey, and you go up there and you sit on the bench and you have a wee dram of the whiskey and you raise a toast to the fellow who passed, and you have a wee think. And when I was told about that story, that it was fairly recent, it was just before I moved, so about 20 years ago it would have happened. It's a very emotional story and still affects people who live on that island to this day. And just thinking about that in the context of how death really affects a small community like that. Beautiful story. If you end up drinking the last dram in the bottle, you have to go all the way back down to get a fresh bottle to put under the bench. Just to let you know, don't drink all the whiskey, and if you are, make sure you replace it. On the recording, Gillian's harp, as soon as I heard it, I was just so pleased and relieved. It was more than what I'd hoped for. And then hearing that counterplay with C. May's cello, which is so mournful and beautiful, as soon as I heard it, I knew that when we were going to be mixing with Rob, that I could actually take out my acoustic guitar that I'd recorded with Suze and just have the vocal with the harp and cello, because I feel like they're such dramatic instruments. It really sort of accentuates the drama behind the song.
Round the back of the hall by a sycamore tree, take the path up the hill that'll single out the key. Near the top of the rock there's an area you'll see where two pools sit so still. It's a hidden cemetery.
Melody Something is a song, well, the version that's on Island Family, the album version, is quite an epic tune, and I was definitely channeling a bit of Mercury Rev on that one. There's a song that they released called Chasing a Bee. Is that what it's called? And I hope you don't mind chasing a bee inside a jar. So cool. I think that's the lyric. What's really cool about that song is the music video. My friend Blair Young, who's a director, put me on to the music video for that, which is like it's just like a mad sort of summery collage. There's like a beautiful, dark, psychedelic edge to it. And that video is every bit as inspiring to me as the song. And so I tried to imbue that into the album version of the song Melody Something. But when it came to doing the Follow Footsteps version, it needed to be stripped back. It's a beautiful song. I really am proud of this one. It makes me think a lot about egg because it's about egg. When we were recording it, Suze was quite into the idea of us having harmonies and vocals layered upon each other. And Suze's vocals are so great. She is amazing at kind of capturing this very breathy, ethereal vocal sound, which I really love dearly. And whilst we were doing stuff, I was like, oh, this really puts me in mind of this song called I Am Daylight by Songs of Green Pheasant. Songs of Green Pheasant, that's the name of an act. They were on Fat Cat and they released a bunch of albums, and this first record they released the first song and it's called I Am Daylight, and I really love it. It's got a very sort of reverb-soaked chamber folk vibe about it. And we channeled that into the song melody, something you can hear the beautiful harmonies at the beginning and at the end, and I really love that. It's quite hard to replicate that live. Gillian, who plays harp, is a very good singer as well, so her and Suze have been doing some beautiful harmonies on this when we do it live. You should come and see it live.
Seasons recurring, rearrange. I'm noticing every single change. Fast forward now, summer's out of time. Melody somewhere out of range. People are changing all the same, telling me summer's all in the mind. Memory somewhere, disintegrating. Tell me it's somewhere.
There are two little instrumentals on the EP that kind of bind the little songs together. There's one called Follow Footsteps and there's another one called Flowers Rising into the Black. When I was mixing the record together with Rob, I was trying to work out ways of syncing the tracks together, and we had all these extra parts that Sime and Gillian had done on cello and harp that weren't used in the mix but sounded so incredible even just isolated on their own. So we mucked around with a few of those, and they're very short little instrumentals, little interstitial moments on the record, but yeah, I think it really binds it together, and full credit to Rob Jones for doing an excellent mixing job on these, and to Sime and Gillian for playing them. Really nice. The stuff on Follow Footsteps is sort of extracts of them playing that wasn't used from Melody Something, I think. And then Flowers Rising into the Black, those are little elements that were taken from Nuclear Sunflower Swamp that weren't used. And so, yeah, fitting in with the EP's themes of protecting nature and recycling, we recycled those moments. Doing my little bit, you know, doing my bit for the planet. You're welcome. The song Nuclear Sunflower Swamp, the album version's very industrial and very sort of aggressive, and this version's very plaintive and relaxed. It's a song that I wrote when I was reading about what nature's role is in terms of preserving our ecosystem and our lives. I was reading about sunflowers and about how they were planted in specific areas to draw radioactive waste from the soil and from the ground where there'd been some sort of spillages. And yeah, they planted sunflowers and they would draw up all the toxins and destroy themselves. And I kind of, the idea of nature playing a role in sacrificing itself so that the rest of us can live in blissful harmony is just a really beautiful idea, I think, and about how we're all called upon now to make sacrifices in our lives in order to kind of preserve our way of life and to preserve our future and to kind of have something for our children so that there's a planet left. So that's what the song's about. It's maybe a bit of a garbled message. I don't know if I've communicated that in the song. I almost certainly haven't communicated the sentiment in this podcast interview, but I know what I mean, and that's all that counts. But yeah, I like that idea. It's very dear to me. And it also sort of symbolises that role that we all have to play in preserving the future and that sense of belonging that we have to one another, that we have to look out for one another and we have to do all we can to make a livable planet in order to protect one another. It's really important. Maybe that's become more important to me since becoming a parent. The recorded version, I think, really suits this setup. The cello and the harp sound fantastic, and Suze's bass playing really lovely. Very pleased with this one. I hope you like it too.
Breathing water, protect the reactor, keeping hold of a little recorder, bleeding the wetlands, these coal-soaked horizons, refreshing the gardens, new sunflowers rising up. Waiting for waders to swallow their trainers, our new friends' mutations, quite literally all ears. Back straight, sit higher, let's see who you are. Over the island, stay patient and silent. All the weeds in the backlands, suck it all up. Is it always the flowers that feed from the swamp? All the waste in the backwash, swallow it up. Will it always rise from the swamp? Turn back, I plant the seeds tonight. Watch flowers rising into the black. You dream of soil and soul that speaks to me in signs on the wall. It wasn't in writing, I perished contemplating the thought. You put the records on, I hear it. You play and turn back, I plant seeds tonight, I watch flowers rising into the black, into the black. All the weeds in the backlands, suck it all up. Is it always the flowers that feed from the swamp? All the waste in the backwash, swallow it up. Will it always rise from the swamp? All the weeds in the backlands, see the sunflowers rise from the swamp. All the